All right, everybody, we are back with 4th and 5. I am your host, DJ Williams, and I got my co-host, the one and only Josh Throne. We're switching it up a little bit. We took a break, Josh, but now we are back, and I guess you're up in Northwest Arkansas. I'm here in Little Rock, but we back.
We're back, baby. I mean, it feels like it's been a long time since the Chad Morris years. Now we get to come back and do this again under Sam Pittman. I think it was much needed for us to come back into the Razorback atmosphere and be able to get your input week to week.
Yeah, that being said, it's about to our input. I know 2 games down. Razorbacks 2-0 here on the season. Week 1 seemed good. Still a little question marks about offensive line play. Is defense actually as good as they are? We really don't know. And then we have a game, first game up in Fayetteville against Kent State. And still, Josh, more questions after that game. An extremely slow start. For a while there, the only the only touchdown was from the defense. Kent State almost held our offense completely off the board for the better half of that game. And so you can see why a lot of Razorback fans are for sure on this board of, man, are we even legit? What happens when conference play comes rolling around?
Yeah, I know. You think you come into the season and you got all this hype, as we always do, Razorback fans, expecting the best of the best every single year. You get through week 1, you go into week 2, you expect to be able to really beat these guys dramatically. And when that doesn't happen, I mean, what do? You're at a point now where you're like, okay, well, we better beat the brakes off BYU because I'm expecting to see something, a little bit better than what we put on the field last week.
And when it comes to putting on the field last week, you and I, we've been around this game a very long time, and I have my opinions, and I will say a lot of times when I give my opinions, I think a lot of people forget that I'm a Razorback fan. I love the Razorbacks. I want them to win a national championship each and every year, but at the same time, I know the game and I know the sport, and I'm going to keep it real. And I know there's a lot of podcasts or a lot of, football talks when it comes about the Razorbacks. What will separate us here on 4th and 5? We will go places. There are other avenues that give you some really good content when it comes to Razorback sports and really cool stuff. But when things start going south, you're not going to hear any of those guys say anything negative when it comes to that football team because they don't want to hurt the relationships. And I understand that and I respect that. But at the same time, I was in those locker rooms, and I know what those coaches are saying to those players. I know what those players are saying to each other. I know what they're thinking, and that's what you're going to get here on 4th and 5. That being said, let's go ahead and dig into these issues. Josh, what issues would you like to bring forth after the first 2 weeks of here the Razorback football season?
Well, I think this last week, what we saw against Kent State, I think there's some big, I don't want to call them red flags, just areas of focus that we need to kind of touch on. And that's number 1, the offensive line. So, look, when you're an SEC school and you're going in and you're playing a team like Kent State, you're expecting to literally roll them over, bully ball. We have better recruits. We've got bigger bodies. We've got better players. And so getting into the end zone shouldn't be a big problem. We had a huge problem with doing that first half against Kent State. And I want to know, what do you think Sam Pittman is going back and talking to his offensive line about? Because if you've watched the post-game press conference with Sam Pittman, I don't want to say he was getting testy because I feel like that's a strong word, but I think he was definitely like a little annoyed with some of their questions about how he's going to address the offensive line. And they kept coming back to it for about 15 minutes. And he finally was just like, hey, look, I'm going to handle it. I should have just said that from the beginning or something like that.
I mean, Coach Pittman knows there's a problem. There's no doubt about it. He's been around the game too long to not understand that there's a problem. And people say all the time, yeah, the offensive line needs to get better, but they never really tell you how. I'm gonna tell you how. The technique and the fits, the pad level of these offensive linemen, it blows my mind how they aren't in a position to even be successful. I mean, I watched that Kent State game. I watched the Western Carolina game, and they had a defensive lineman at Western Carolina. He was listed at 6 foot, maybe about 250 pounds. Josh, I was on the field. I saw him. He was maybe all of 5'10", maybe 235, soaking wet, and he was wearing out our right tackle. And so when you look at things like that, it wasn't just a few times. It was all game long. You see so many times our offensive linemen with horrible technique And I just know, I honestly don't know if it's just they're playing down because they see these guys and they're like, oh, I can just big boy this guy. I can get after him. And they
Right.
get away from their technique. And these guys, they're coming hungry, ready to make a statement, ready to put some tape up to show people, hey, we may be not an SEC school, but we're here to play. I don't know if that's the case. But what I saw on film, any defensive lineman who was watching film of the Arkansas Razorbacks moving forward, they're thinking, man, this is going to be the game when we get a chance to pad our stats because these guys are soft. They look soft. And that's not me being sensitive or, not
Right.
empathetic to them at all. It's just the honest truth. They look extremely soft up front. Now, it is fixable. It's Coach Pittman getting in that locker room and really making them make a decision what type of player they want to be. When I was in college, Josh, all a coach had to do was put the film on and have your peers watch it with you. And then they
Right.
ask you, what do you think about this play? With all of your boys watching. And when they
Right.
all look at you like, oh man, soft, need to be sponsored by Charmin, it does something to you. It'll make you fold, it'll make you step up and be aggressive. And that just takes me to another point. Why are they playing like that? And it kind of goes on both sides too. There's some defensive players too where I'm just like, why are y'all not completely demolishing these guys? I think it starts in practice. It looks like they got a little too comfortable with, hey man, go about 80%, I'll go about 80%, instead of trying to rip each other's heads off at practice. And I think that really shows up on tape.
Sam was saying, or Coach Pitt, should I say? I don't know him like that. I don't know why I'm calling him Sam. Coach Pittman was saying in the post game is that I don't know, he came back after he watched film on Monday, and he was talking about the fact that, hey, listen, I had a chance to watch some film. The offensive line really doesn't look as bad as kind of maybe what I had thought that first game. He's like, it wasn't great. He's not happy with the product that was on the field, but after going back and looking at some things, he said, hey, there were some running backs that were at fault. They were not hitting the holes the way they should have. We were running a little bit of outside zone plays, and you know how it is. You got the entire line moving. Everybody's picking up a block, trying to get to the next level to pick up a linebacker, and those running backs got to pick and choose what lane they burst through. And a lot of times they're not hitting the hole the way they need to. They don't see it the way they need to. And so he was actually saying that the running backs need to step up in a lot of those areas too and hit the holes a little harder, find the lanes, and make a play out of what's out there on the field. I went back and watched some film too after he said that because like I don't remember seeing it. When you watch it live, you see the play, you see people get tackled in the backfield, and you're going, oh my gosh, the offensive line is terrible, or they're not doing their job, and you can become a nice little armchair quarterback where you're just criticizing everybody. However, watching the game film back, there are a lot of times where the running backs are just bouncing outside when they shouldn't be bouncing outside, and they're running straight into a tackle. They should cut right back up inside behind one of these offensive linemen. So there's a lot of miscommunication that seems to be going down on the offensive line, even out of pass protection. Oftentimes, when they would, you'd see the center kind of point out a few things. You'd see the defensive line take a lot of or change fronts. They'd move a lot right before the play to cause some miscommunication with the offensive line and confuse them. So I think that if there's anybody that can fix the offensive line play, it is Sam Pittman at head coach. I mean, he's got the guy he wants to be the position coach for the offensive lineman, so you've got that to play with. Um, but let Sam Pittman go back, let him review this, let him work with the offensive line, and let them get a little bit of experience, a couple games together as a new unit, figuring out who fits where, who does what the right way. And I think BYU can be handled up front. I still think we've got the guys. I mean, every single one of our offensive linemen are over 320. So, I haven't been down there in a 3-point stance though. You have. You tell me what it's like.
I get they're big, and the running back thing is interesting. Personnel is going to be huge moving forward for this team, and I say that because Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, two completely different backs, and Darren's going to be downhill, hitting those holes hard, where Felix was a zone guy who you would spread it out to the field or the sideline, and he would wait to see his opening and then hit it. So you see we have a backfield full of guys, and it seems like they interchange them a lot, especially since Rocket is out. So it's about finding which back is going to fit best for a system, but you just can't throw them in there for their best play because then it becomes a tell for the defense of saying, okay,
Right.
this back is in, we know what they want to do. So they have to be versatile in running a zone or a downhill run play, and also being great in pass protection. And so there's just so many different avenues of finding that back that fits all of those things. Rocket is our main guy. And
Right.
so that being said, we have a lot of talented guys. Dominion, who I'm a big fan of, I think can be that guy. I think AJ Green is a more of a zone type runner, and you
Mhm.
have DJ, Mr. Johnson himself, out there, and he's more going to be your downhill guy. He's still trying to bounce back from that ACL, so it goes backs, it goes offensive lineman, it goes tight end, and it goes making sure that KJ also has the option to make checks at the line of scrimmage and not run them into a bad play. Now, I will say this. I do think there is a little bit of an aspect, and this is where I'm going to give them a little bit more credit. Dan Enos knows he needs to work on the run game,
Right.
regardless of what the defense is showing. And so when they load the box, he's like, man, I might as well take the opportunity to try to run against this, because later in SEC play, we're going to be really playing some guys that we're going to struggle blocking. Let's just try to get some reps now. I really still do think if he wanted to, he could throw the ball a lot more and be very successful.
Well, we talked offensive line, we talked running backs. What about the other back? What about KJ Jefferson? Is there a reason why he's not running? We all know that KJ Jefferson and the Razorbacks play better when he's running the football. Why are we not running it yet? Are we going to see more of that? What do you think the real reason that we're kind of holding it back outside of just maybe keeping him away from being injured?
I think they're thinking big picture. You're eventually going to start playing against guys where him running every play is not going to be good for KJ. I mean, you saw he really was banged up at the end of last year. You go
Right.
back to that BYU game when we felt like he should have came out and he had like a little shoulder ding, and so but he was able to bounce back from that as well. But yeah, you can't rely on your quarterback to be your number one runner. Um, and you also notice that in those situations, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, 3rd and 3, they rely on KJ to, go ahead and get it in his hands and go ahead and try to pick up the first on his own. But you just can't
Right.
rely on it is with the type of offense that Dan Enos wants. He wants to be extremely balanced, and he wants his quarterback to do what a quarterback's supposed to do. Throw
I
the
mean, but
ball, get him in the right run, huh?
at some point in time, do you not go, you know, I've got KJ Jefferson. I need to win this game. We need to find some sort of balance here in the run game because if the running backs aren't getting it done, and KJ is can get it done, from the shotgun, and he can just take off running with a lead blocker, a pulling guard around the edge, and he can run somebody over. Do you not just go as offensive coordinator like, hey, look, I can't establish anything on the ground here. Let me just run my quarterback. I felt like that's what Cam Newton did. That's what made him so great.
Yeah, but Cam was also smart about not taking unnecessary hits. KJ just got he will lower his shoulder and try to knock
Right.
someone out, and that's all good and everything. But when you have to, I was that way when I ran. I would catch and I would
Hmm.
point someone out and try to go right through them. Now a lot of
Right.
times after that, I would get up and I was seeing three different things and probably had a concussion, and it's just very difficult to operate on such a high level of who goes where, what's the snap count, what is the offensive line, what's the defensive looking like. Quarterbacks are just a different breed, and so I think you got to protect those guys. But that being said, when it comes down to the end, if you need that first down and you're about 2 yards out, KJ is usually your guy. So we talked about some problems, Josh.
Yeah.
Offensive line, defensively. I still think we're in an area where we are going to struggle with our defensive backs, and that's a lot of people will say I'm hating because week one you had 4 picks,
You're not.
and another
You're
one
not
last
hating.
week. On paper, they look decently good, but I'm still not sold.
There was a play at the end of the game, right before our goal line stand. The reason why Kent State was at the goal line to begin with was a deep ball over the top of one of our corners, Stewart, on the right hand side. I think it was a 30-plus yard throw, and it was a great catch. But he was beat. He was just beat over the top, and we haven't seen a lot of that yet this season of us getting beat over the top, which tended to happen quite a bit over the past few years. We didn't see it a lot, but we did see Stewart get beat over the top against Kent State. I promise you that's going to continue to happen as we go into SEC play. We've got guys that are bigger, faster, stronger. A lot of these teams that we're going to play, and they're going to try to take advantage of us over the middle and over the top and just beat us deep. And so that is concerning. On a good note of the defense, the defensive line looks amazing. They really look good. And I would rather talk about how good they look, and maybe they can stop the quarterback from even being able to throw the ball, not get the time in the pocket to go deep on us. What do you think about them?
Week 1, I was concerned. Week 2, the times when they needed to show up, I was just like, why don't y'all do that every snap? And so they are
Right.
still in that phase of not understanding at this level of competition. It's every play relentless to where the person going against you is just like, I'm tapped out. I don't want to do it anymore. But when it's 3rd and 3 and that the offense really needs you and the crowd is into it, it seems like they turn it up another gear. So that being said, it's very promising to see that they have it in them. It'd be
Right.
just nice to do it on 1st down and 2nd down and just make those guys, especially smaller teams, go to the sideline and being like, okay, yeah, that's why I didn't get that D1 scholarship. Those guys are built different.
Right.
For the longest time, those guys were on the sideline. They probably went into halftime, Josh, thinking these SEC ain't nothing. These guys get all this. They ain't nothing. We got these guys. And so
Right.
a defense that is just so dominant will crush that stuff from the jump. And so I think we have guys that can do that, and we're going to need it up front because I'm telling you right now, week 1, that quarterback at Western Carolina missed a lot. He missed a
Yeah.
lot. A lot of our guys were out of position. A lot got burnt. And the picks
Right.
that we had, like I said, I may sound like a hater. I'm going to say it. But you and me, we could have got up there and picked those balls. He threw them right to the defenders each and every
There was
time. And
there was a couple of them. There was a
yeah,
couple
a
of them
couple.
that
It
were
was
easy
all of
picks.
them. Maybe for the exception of one. So we're still, when we come across a quarterback with experience, which I think we will a little bit against BYU, looking at BYU's stats, they're not jumping off the charts. Almost 500 yards passing. That's averaging 250 a game. Rushing is around 150, for 2 games. So offense isn't just going crazy. But that team is always going to be experienced. They have the chemistry because those guys have been there forever and with extra years, and they're older. And so this will finally be a week where we see where we are as far as the team moving forward.
Yeah. So, what do you think? Let's go back to offense. Let's talk Dan Enos because that's the big question mark right now for this new season is having this first year offense being installed, trying to figure out how to utilize KJ without getting him hurt. Trying to figure out the offensive woes, and you've got a lot of new receivers out there. Tell me a little bit about what you see and think about Dan Enos's offensive strategy, just in general, as an OC, and how you think he's going to best utilize these new guys.
I like it. I still don't think we've seen it so far since he's been back, but go back to Brandon Allen days, and they had
Yeah,
Drew Morgan, Keon Hatcher. They had talent, Dominique Reed. I mean, they had Jared Cornelius. He had weapons all over the field, and he used them all with Alex Collins and Jonathan Williams. I mean, it was just a stacked team, and he was able to use everyone. Hunter Henry, shoot. I mean,
right.
just look at that roster I just said. And he was really good at, making sure he didn't ask his players to do something he knew they weren't good at. He wanted them to excel in what they were most talented at. And he did a very good job with that. We just haven't seen that yet because, once again, I still don't think he's given what what the defense gives him because he's still trying to work on what he knows is a weakness, and he needs those offensive linemen to get more comfortable with that run game. Like I said, they can just sit back, keep the back and tight end in protection, and just throw all over these guys from what they have shown so far this year. But he's just not doing that because he knows he needs the rep. So as far as what he is bringing to the table this year, I don't think we have fully quite had the opportunity to see it. So we talked about a little offense, a little defense, and I know sometimes it seems like we are negative, but those are the things we want to fix. I remember when I was in New England, Bill Belichick, he was talking to a player who was complaining about a contract, and they said, Coach Belichick never says anything good, and he says anything good. It's not my job to pat you on your back for doing what you're supposed to do.
Supposed to
But
do.
but I'll rip you a new one for doing what you're not supposed to do. That's what I'm supposed to do as a coach. So let's go and switch gears for a second, and let's talk about some players we're actually excited about from what we've seen
Well,
on the
I'll tell
football
you.
field. Who you got?
I'll tell you who I'm excited about. I'm excited about Tesla. I've been trying to figure out how to. Yeah, I think that's how you say his name. I just call him Tesla, but I heard somebody else calling him Tesla because it's got a couple A's at the end. But that's who I'm excited about, man. This guy he's got the frame, the strength, the height, and the want to when he's on the field. There, you saw a pass last week that he had a guy all over his back. It was a bad pass by KJ. It was real low. He still dove. He cradled the ball so that it didn't hit the ground. It's a real tough catch to make when somebody's on your back. Listen, there's one thing that I've got is hands, baby. I might not have had the feet, but I got the hands. And so when I'm watching him play and I watch him make catches like that, there's a part of me that goes, "Wow, he did that for me."
He
Um,
did that for you.
uh,
That's
he
you
did
out
that
there,
for me.
Josh, watching.
He did that for us, and so
And who is us? Light skinned brothers out there? Is that what it
hey,
is?
listen, I just excited to see him this season. I think he's a guy that's going to go some places. And Isaiah Satanga, is that
Satania.
how you say Santana? I
Mm.
think that he's a guy that's got unreal speed. He's a local guy from Fayetteville High School. I'm super excited to figure out how they get him more involved. To me, he's like a Joe Adams as far as quickness is, and I want to see him get utilized like that. Get him the ball in space, some short crossing routes, run some quick routes to him outside, and just start putting the ball in his hands and see what he does because he's faster than everybody out there. He's
Yeah.
quicker. So those are
I
a couple
think.
guys that I'm excited about. And then obviously your boy Luke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
I'd love to
love
hear your
Luke,
thoughts on
Luke
him.
Hawes, freshman from Bixby, Oklahoma, tight end, and the sky is the ceiling. Am I saying that right? For this guy, I mean,
Right.
he's big, he's strong. He was like that in high school, and I love watching how well he is at running routes. He has a lot of fluidity in the way that he moves. He is patient. He knows to excel. That means he's getting some great coaching. So shout out to the new tight end coach for that. But he's also very physical at the point of attack when it comes to blocking. Now, he does have a lot of work to get done in that area, no doubt about it. But just to see the willingness as a freshman in the game not being
Right.
too big, man, that's huge. That is huge for a freshman. And he may be one of the best to ever do it at the University of Arkansas. So I'm very excited to see his growth. And you talked about Isaiah Santana. This is a guy, Josh, that I think a coach has to just force him on the field and force ways to get the ball in his hands, like you said. I think he is someone that he sees the game a lot slower than a lot of other guys, just his reads, his patience, his confidence. There was a punt last week that was really short. A lot of other players would, wave their hands and say, get away. And he was sprinting up to it. I was like, no way he's going to try to catch that. And he did. He dove and
Mm-hmm.
caught a punt, and that's a high risk move right there. That the game is so slow to him and that it just seems so easy to him and his confidence is there. And you said like Joe, his speed is almost second to none on that football field, kind of like a Jarius Wright type speed. The way he moves and he's shifty, kind of like a Joe Adams. Now, he's not each of them, but you put those two together, but you give him
Right.
some good hands, his hands are unreal. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think he could be a big time playmaker. We just have to force the ball to his hands. And yes, like you said with Tesla, that guy, I think he has a natural given ability to just have great ball awareness. Like you said, his hands are unreal. If it's just somewhere around here, he will catch it. And if he has a drop, I guarantee you, if he has a drop, we will remember those because it's not going to be often.
No, no, it won't. So I wanted to play a little game with you. Here's what I want you to do. I'm gonna go through some key guys for this season. I want you to just give them a grade up to this point. How do you think they played? And maybe you can follow it up with you can give me a little insight on maybe what you see them in the future being, and maybe a little bit of positives. Even if you give them a low grade right now,
I'm not
give
giving
me
out
some
1A. I don't even know what you're going to ask me. I don't give out A's.
give me some positives for the future of what you want to see so they can excel. KJ Jefferson. Let's start off with the quarterback. What do you like so far? What do you give him?
I'm going to give KJ, like I said, I don't give out A's. I'm gonna give him a B right now. Not a B minus, not a B plus. I'm gonna give him a B. Just because how confident he looks in the pocket. I still think there's a couple times he gets a little too confident. He should see a few blitzes. There's that time in the first game when he got sacked and he fumbled on the 3-yard line and it was a turnover. No, actually he got the ball back. I'm sorry, he did get the ball back. He should have saw that blitz coming from a mile away. But he was just a little
Mhm.
too lax to the play call. Just wanted to get the ball out. The team was up, but the safety was over the second receiver. A linebacker was on the edge. Anyone who plays football for longer than 2 weeks and pays attention to the meeting room should have known a blitz was coming. And so that's just kind of getting a little too comfortable in your role. But that being said, you can't knock him for being comfortable because that's what you want in a quarterback. So right now, we're just going to go B. He gets the ball where it needs to be. He's missed a couple passes to a couple open receivers. But, man, you can't deny that guy is a leader. He makes plays when plays need to be made. And, man, have you seen – did you see last week each time he ran and a DB came up and tried to tackle him, they had
Oh
to
my
call
God.
timeout to have the
Right.
trainers come out and pick up the DBs. They couldn't tackle. This guy's built
I,
different.
I was going to bring that up. He absolutely smoked a safety who tried to come up and meet him at like 12 yards. I don't know why you'd come up and meet him after all that momentum. That guy laid over on the ground. They had to come get him off the field. Okay. Andrew Armstrong, receiver, transfer, came in from Texas A&M Commerce. I think he had 2 touchdowns this past game. How do you feel about him?
Um, I'm gonna go ahead and give him a B as well. Just like Tesla, he has good hands. You don't see too often when he's gonna drop a ball. Him on the sideline, he's really great with his awareness and making sure if it's tight to the sideline, he's dragging his feet. He's making sure he's staying in bounds while still having awareness of where the ball is in the air. There was one pass, I believe, week 1, where he was just out of bounds on the third and long throw, but that's just because KJ put him out there. But he's another player, just like Tesla, who's just been a quite surprise of like, man, these guys were in D2 last year.
Right.
What
Right.
happened? Were they just overlooked, which happens to players all the time?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, either that, there's a lot of reasons why guys might decide they want to, go D2 immediate playing time. Maybe it's close to home. I mean, Armstrong's from Dallas, Texas, so maybe that had something to do with it. Just staying in there in Texas for a little while. But nonetheless, 2 guys you just mentioned, Armstrong, Tesla, both 6'4". I love the fact that we've got some receivers with some height and size, especially once they start bulking up. They actually start looking like some of these LSU receivers and some of these Alabama receivers. Too often we've had just all around smaller players than some of these other schools. A lot of time you get up there and you look at the size of the lines. Other than the recent Sam Pittman years, Bielema had a big offensive line too. Um, but a lot of our yeah, I just say you compare Alabama and LSU's defensive backs a lot of the time, and they look like our linebackers. And so it's great to see some running backs, or I'm sorry, some receivers with some size. Okay, um, what do you think about Rocket Sanders so far? Is this going to be something that continues to happen? I mean, obviously you can't grade him other than that first game, but how do you think he performed the first game? Was it his fault that he didn't have a big, huge 120-yard, 150-yard game, or is it
I mean,
some
I'm
other
just gonna
sign that we're
be
going to see this
honest.
season?
I'm gonna grade it like Rocket should grade himself. I'm gonna give him a C so far this year. Week 1 coming out the way that he did. Now he did get hurt a little bit later. He's expected to be out 2, maybe 3 weeks. One would think maybe there's a meniscus tear that they can just scope and get out real quick. Just swelling in the knee. That's just kind of hard to wrap my mind around. I think there's a little bit more that they're not telling us, but he'll be able to bounce back. But yeah, just the performance of when you have a guy like that and the offensive line is not performing. If Darren McFadden was in the backfield and the O line wasn't doing what they were going to do, Darren McFadden's going to let them guys know about it. So he is not just a star-studded running back anymore. He's a captain and a leader on this football team. And so when you have struggles up front as far as rushing is concerned, you know, your captains need to step up and say something and make sure the issue is fixed. And so if the rushing game is not well when it comes to your number one back, I think even if they are doing their part, they have to make sure everyone else is doing their part too. And I'm only giving him a C because I got high standards for him because he can live up to them.
Okay, I like it. I think he's going to be one of the best backs in the SEC if he stays healthy. So, if not the best, I thought he was a good chance to be up for Doak Walker. So, I got a lot of high hopes for that guy. I like that guy. All right, I want to know what you think about Antonio Greer. First snap he ever played at the University of Arkansas, he takes it for a pick six for 25 yards. So, how do you feel about him? You don't give him an A? How do you
I
not give
don't
him an A?
I don't give A's. All right. The day I give an
How do
A,
you
we're
not
gonna
give
have
A?
somebody going to New York and winning the Heisman Trophy. I'll tell you that, or wherever
You're
they do that. Um, no. Talented guy, athletic, and first of all, I love his look. Just looks like that old school player. Did he have a neck
yeah.
brace on, or not a neck brace, one of them little neck roll type things?
Did he?
Just aggressive and just the hands making sure that he wanted to get him up in the passing lanes, but then having the athletic ability to then pick it off and then finish. It's fun, it's exciting. You got to love it for the guy. And I think I saw an interview or something with him after the game. And he just seems like he's going to be a fun player to watch. Who's excited to be out there and make plays.
Okay, last one. Dan Enos.
Oh, I
What do
didn't
you
give him a
give
grade.
him?
Well, I'll give him a B plus
Oh,
for that. That's pretty cool. Pick
okay.
six from a defensive lineman. Yeah.
B plus is the highest thing that you can get from DJ apparently. So, all right, what are you looking at? What do you see with Dan Enos? What's his grade as an offensive coordinator, and pick him apart?
Um, as of now, given the circumstances, I'm gonna give him a C. Um,
Okay.
I just think with the poor balance of week one, when you have a team that's your goal to be balanced and you can't do it against Western Carolina, no matter the circumstances, that's not a good look. Um, and as far as last week, I mean, we didn't. I mean, it was the defense put up the first touchdown. A lot of punts,
Right.
a lot of going for it on third and longs, a couple fourth downs we had to go to, and we're playing Kent State, the team that lost 77 to something the week before.
Right.
So do I believe in Dan Enos? 1,000% performance so far this year. A C. And if I were Dan Enos and he gave himself anything higher than that, then that's a problem. His expectations should be a lot more for himself.
All right. I'll give you my couple of players to look for that I think are going to really help us in BYU. Obviously, guys that I think that are going to step up and have some of the best games they've had this season. KJ Jefferson, going into week three, him and Danny knows are going to get everything on the right track. I think that we're going to start using him more like KJ, and I think he needs to be running the football. KJ gets in a groove and plays his best football when he's running the football. I know that it opens him up for a potential injury, but at the same time, that's his game, and that's what always has made him great. And we got to stick to playing his game because that's what makes KJ KJ. Bo Limmer, obviously vocal leader. He's got a to influence that offensive line. He's got a lot of leadership up there. I expect him to be able to take some of this O line play a little personal. Right, this season, this week, I guarantee you, he's talking to the other guys, and he's going to expect improvement amongst his peers over there on the offensive line. So I think we're going to see improved O line play, hopefully with Bo leading the way. Brady Latham's coming back, so I think that's obviously a guy that's going to help there as well. And then I thought Sanders was going to make it back, but basically what they're saying is he's going to be out for another week, so it doesn't look like Rocket's going to be back. If he was coming back, he was going to be my other go-to guy because I think he's probably one of the best since Darren McFadden. So that's just my personal take, brother.
I like it, man. I like your take. All right, we got to wrap up our show. A new segment. So we were playing pickleball yesterday, and we got inspired by Josh's play because he loves hitting the ball out of bounds. That's his thing. And, we got in his head. We're in his head. Every time he hit it, we're like, you ain't got to get it because it's going out of bounds. So that being said, we got a new segment called Out of Bounds with Josh Throne. Topic this week. Josh, you are very, very passionate about an opinion when it comes to the kicking game in football. You say you want it out of the game.
See, this hurts me to talk about in public because I thought it was a private conversation. I got some friends that are kickers, and I love them. Some great guys. Um, so I feel bad saying that I wanted out the game because then that means they don't get to be in the locker room, and I love those guys. All right, so here's my point. Number one, even with the pickleball situation, I was hitting it out of bounds because I'd had a little bit of that blue label in your kitchen before we played, and I didn't know I was playing pickleball. Secondly, by the time we had that conversation, we were watching Monday Night Football later on that night when I went on about the kickers, and I think I had a little bit more blue label, so I was probably a little bit more passionate about that than I normally would have. So now I've got to eat my words. My point is, man, is that in the game of football, first of all, there's hardly any feet involved other than running. The foot only goes on the ball a few times a game when we kick the ball. And it just blows my mind that we could play a game of football running offense and defense 2.5 hours on end, and it end with a guy who's been sitting on the sideline who hasn't even got his number called yet to come in and decide what these other group of 22 men have been battling over all day long. And there's a lot of people with this opinion. I'm not the only person out there with this opinion. There's a lot of guys out there who think this way. I mean, it's heartbreaking when you've just done everything you could do. You're in a triple overtime or something, and all of a sudden, some guy who just hasn't even broken a sweat yet gets to trot out on the field, kick a field goal through the upright, and it's like it's settled down. No, I think what we should do is we should stick to playing football. There's no more extra points. We go for two every time. It's offense, there's first defense. It's the team competing against one another. And I think it's going to make it a lot more interesting. And then there's no more, kicking a field goal to win a football game in overtime. That's crazy.
So you like Kevin Kelly and his philosophy at Pulaski Academy?
I understand his philosophy in the high school football ranks. I'm not saying that that Arkansas needs to stop kicking a field goal if the other team is. I get that it makes sense when both teams do it. I'm saying football as a whole, I think would benefit from an entertainment standpoint if we just stopped having field goal kickers. That's just that's how I think, man.
That's your take. So I know you're good friends with former Razorback kicker Zach Hawker. No.
I love him.
You
I love
him.
him. I don't want to see. I don't want to. That's why I didn't want to do this because I love him and I want him to be able to kick the ball. So I don't know, man. I had a little bit too much to drink. That's what it was.
Out of Bounds with Josh Throne. Always a fun one. All right, we're about to go ahead and wrap this up. We appreciate y'all being able to tune in. Like I said, each and every week, post game, we're going to be on the field, talk about our thoughts, quick thoughts, that is, but we're always going to have this show a little bit more in depth about our talks. We want you to be a part of the show as well. All right, so make sure you leave comments. What do you want us to talk about? What questions do you have? What are your thoughts on the game? And what are your predictions coming up next? And don't worry about it as this thing gets rolling. Josh and I, Josh, we got some big ideas. We're gonna have guests come on. We got sponsors coming in, and we want to be able to give out some merch as well, right?
That's absolutely right. If you're down there at a tailgate and you want us to come by, 4th and 5, we'll come by the tailgate and you'll go on our social media pages. We would love to see you live at the game. So you make sure that you leave us a comment or hit us up in the DMs because DJ and I will pop up at any moment.
And let's go and say this right now. Next home game, we're both at BYU. It's a late kickoff. People will be tailgating all day long. Send us messages right now. Let us know where your tailgate is. And then we will pick which one of you has the best tailgate. And then we'll show you some love here on 4th and 5, do a whole little segment, and we make sure we get some merch to you the following week as well. That being said, I'm DJ Williams. That's Josh Throne. We appreciate you watching 4th and 5. We'll see you next week.